Alright guys, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between the Wood Elves and Bretonnia. It's going to be myself with Orion facing off against Subutai with the classic Fey Enchantress here on one of our new maps, which is pretty awesome indeed. Now as far as my build goes, it's going to be a classic Wood Elf style, which is spears in front, bows in back. So a little bit risky to being swarmed, but if these Glade Guard Starfire Shafts can get their shooting going, they can do some pretty considerable damage with armor piercing and all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, Eternal Guard are pretty amazing infantry in this matchup, right? They can hold against any of the Bretonnian chaff troopers and also are quite good against cav with an insane base leadership, actually. I believe the base is 80, which is very, very good. And then, of course, having their flank secured and a lord nearby will help. But we got bows and spears. Orion is not meta by any stretch of the imagination, but he is just so cool. And honestly, I think is pretty imposing in the Bretonnian matchup. He causes terror, he's unbreakable, he's extremely tanky, he heals himself when he gets low with the Cloak of Isha, and does also have the Hounds of Orion as well as Hawk's Talon. Two abilities which are actually very good at clearing out, blobs of infantry. So yeah, pretty heavy metal. Branch Wraith is there basically just to spam Melkoths on top of Cav and heal Orion if need be. And on the low ground, we're going to be holding Objective 1 with the Spears as well as the Tree Cannon. That is it for my army. Now for Bretonnia, it is going to be a massive unwashed army of men-at-arms and peasants mostly. Battle Pilgrims in the secondary. Hands down, just one of the better infantry units in this matchup. Very good base leadership. Obviously with the Grail Relic nearby, they basically sitting around Sigvald-esque leadership. Good DPS, shielded, they get in there, they fight. Shooting them isn't terribly cost effective, and they can go fisticuffs with your infantry. Obviously, War Dancers will beat them, but, they do it for the lady, and it's really nice to just have them near the Fey Enchantress and buffering and all that sort of good stuff. Paladins, also very good here. Anti-large is pretty pertinent in this matchup against Wood Elves. Oftentimes, you'll see cheap cavalry like Glade Riders. Sometimes you'll see Stag Knights in this matchup, but I don't think I'm a good enough Wood Elf player to make Stag Knights work too well. So probably not going to see too many of those. And yeah, just a swarming Bretonnian army, which is very standard. And then what happens after that is the cavalry come out shortly after. So we'll do some fast forwarding while the two armies get in position. Orion going to be moving up to throw some spears and just be difficult. And the two spears going to be falling back in the formation while the Dryads move up towards objective number 2 here. And the boys are back in town. We're going to be holding and getting ready to engage. As my archers going to be turning about face and just wrecking these peasant bowmen. So you'll see the inferior Bretonnian archers going to get wrecked by the Elvish archers. How many of you guys are OG Magic players? Remember the Elven Archers, the old school 2-1 first strike? Though that was good at one point. That was solid Magic. But Bretonnia is going for a big envelop, basically. A lot of units coming around the side here. Two Paladins going to be finding their way in. I do call in the Wardens of Sithril, anti-large armor piercing. Pretty stalwart unit here. While on this side we hold this objective very easily. The Tree Cannon Spears should be able to anchor that one down. And one Peasant Bowman is pretty much in the trash can already, as an Earthblood does go down from Bretonnia in the middle. Going to be helping out the men-at-arms a little bit, but overall the Dryads are just giving them the dirty, and we do leave a little bit of an opening, though. A couple men-at-arms going to find their way through, so that was a very Bronzodia play of me. Meanwhile, on the side, the Eternal Guard meeting the Peasants head-on, the biggest duel, the big clash. We'll see who wins this one. I'm sure the Eternal Guard will do just fine, but meanwhile, the Archers are still more or less online. But I haven't been presented with too many good targets yet. There's no big cavalry out, not a lot of swarming, and I was certainly learning about some of the weaknesses of my initial opening on the go, but it hasn't been terrible. We have killed some peasant archers and done a little bit of damage wherever we can, and most of the melee trading is going very favorably for us. Dryads are bashing these Battle Pilgrims with the support of the Branch Wraith here, and Orion is just going to continue hunting his prey while we call in Glade Riders to just run down the advancing men-at-arms. So the archers continue to maneuver, pulling back, and the Wardens of Sithril are going to be defending while the Bretonnians try to encircle us. Big Battle Pilgrim flank coming in with their upside-down shields and, all the good times that they like to bring with them. Orion pulling back, trying to use him to peel off the Paladins, but it's been a little bit hard to catch them so far. But when he does catch those Paladins, his anti-large bonus will be incredibly pertinent. And the flanking on this side has more or less been shut down, but we do see some heavy cav coming in, Knights of the Realm, the scourge of the Wood Elves, honestly. And in Warhammer 2, which is a lot of my years and years of covering land battles in Warhammer 2 and whatnot. But the Wood Elves used to really struggle against Knights of the Realm, and just Bretonnia in general was very dominant against Wood Elves in my experience. Oftentimes you'd have to see really degenerate kiting builds that were borderline rule breaks to get the dubs. But I think it's a little bit better in Dom mode here. So Ryan doing great, finally able to catch his prize, and he is just showing this Paladin who's boss, the King of the Woods. Has to shank some of his fellow archers in the process, but he does terrify off this Paladin, which is great, brings it down to a very low amount of health, and awesome Chalice of Potions there. I was a little bit kind of hyper-focused on dealing with the cavalry pressure on the side, that I did miss that, and it did some really brutal damage, as the value is now equalized by Bretonnia, but the middle's looking good for us. Dryads and Spears able to hold that point down, and up on the top side, we are going to be pressing with some War Dancers coming in to try and steal Objective 3. Meanwhile, though, Grail Knights did come all the way around the top, and Grail Knights are really brutal to deal with. You have a couple options, usually just tar pitting them with spears. The Wardens of Sithril, one of the cooler looking units. I think when I eventually started Wood Elf Army and Tabletop, I would want to do like an autumn themed one. I think that's really cool, like the browns and the oranges, and I think it's a really, really nice look. But my cavalry getting hammered pretty, not my cavalry, but my Glade Guard getting hammered pretty bad here by the Bretonnian Cav, and are forced to kind of retreat as the Grail Knights pull back and across. And one really good tactic for you aspiring Bretonnian players is to use the Grail Knights to intercept reinforcements. So for example, if there's no good engagements for them here, you can kind of lurk in the backfield like he's doing. And if I send out like a Dryad or anything that isn't a spear unit, the Grail Knight's going to be able to run them over, right? So War Dancers almost to the high ground point. They will have the capture weight advantage. Men-at-Arms are expendable. Holy Wardens, though, will be a bit of a problem. Holy Wardens probably will beat a War Dancer unit. So that's a little bit tricky that those guys are chilling there. But in the middle, Dryads pulling back, Branch Wraith and Eternal Guards holding it down. Meanwhile, in the low ground objective, we're still able to hold that. Looks like we're pretty comfortable with Spears and the Glade Guard Starfire Shafts. Bit of a tongue twister there. Trying to snipe this Paladin, but he is able to kind of squeak away. 561 HP, down to 289. Is he going to break off the battlefield? That's going to be a pretty big leadership break, and yes, he will. So the archers did do their final task, and were able to get that before the Bretonnian Knights come in and punish them pretty badly. So, trying something here. Great Stag Knights. We're going to see what they can do. I figured, hey, they have good shock damage. Probably should have just sent them straight into the Grail Knights right now while I had the opportunity to get a charge on them, but we're going to be going into the backfield and looking for other opportunities. So we're going to see what we can get. Orion holding it down in the middle. Valley very, very close at this point is the Eternal Guard anchoring, and Orion just causing terror and, you know, spearing down these big cav units and looking super cool. I hope that when the old world comes back to Tabletop, they give a new Orion model. Because, you know, they're probably going to be, even though it's set in a different time period, you're still going to have Cetra, Teclis, you know, Malekith. Like, all those characters are probably still going to be pretty relevant, right? So here I go for an isolation on the Knights of the Realm. I saw them with their flank exposed. I do go for an attack, but he responds very quickly. And it's very easy to underestimate the speed of Bretonnian cavalry in this patch, or since they got their update. Like, Bretonnian heavy cav units used to have speed in the 70s, and you used to be able to really outrun them with Wood Elves, but now their basic, like, heavy cavalry have 84 speed, and with the acceleration bonus, they can actually catch some Wood Elf cavalry if you're a little bit sloppy like I was there. So basically just trying to salvage my cav. I'm getting the spears in position to screen, and I'm going to be running these Great Stag Knights back through my spears trying to escape while we still do have objective 1, thankfully, and the middle point looks like it's going to be flipping to Bretonnia. A little bit scary here. We are up in points as far as value goes. The Stag Knights being called in, you know, an expensive 1,500 gold unit getting mulched and pretty much doing nothing in return, getting barely any value, was really, really a big turning the tide there for sure. That could have been like 3 or 4 infantry units, which would have been more impactful for sure on this middle objective. I feel like it's very tough to contest the Bretonnian cav with a Wood Elf cav, but, you know, again, I'm not really a Wood Elf player, so you live and you learn. So here we do get Orion duking it out in the pits with the old Branch Wraith. She's got her claws out. And that combo, the power couple here is doing great. Orion's at about 1,000 value. Has a lot of fight left in him. High ground point, we did get our War Dancers up there, and we did use the Shadow's Coil to give them 62 melee defense. And they honestly are holding very well considering the circumstances, but the Holy Wardens are a pretty high DPS unit, and the Defenders of Fleur de Lis are an excellent anti-infantry cap piece with 77 charge bonus, 46 melee attack right now. So probably going to be losing that position. I did almost steal the objective. It felt good. I was like almost there, but we did not quite get it. Felt bad. So the Great Stag Knights do manage to get stabilized. They're going to be hunting down whatever we can, just looking for chaff units and archers and freebies and, you know, trying to fight the good fight. Meanwhile, low ground objective looking pretty good for us. The Bretonnian cavalry being pushed back by my tattered remnants of my archer corps and a couple of Eternal Guard units. Treekin are also not bad. Their high armor and their durability, you can usually use them to anchor down a point. Like an Eternal Guard unit plus a Treekin standing on top of one another can be incredibly tough to break down for Bretonnia for sure. But the blood fight in the middle continues. Wardens of Sithril have piled in. Their anti-large bonus, not terribly relevant here since there's not a ton of cav in the picture, but even still they are sundering armor. And Orion is being a bit of a bully. Of course, Fey Enchantress is on foot, which means she's not going to be a large entity. Therefore, Orion's giant anti-large shaft is not going to get the job done. But nonetheless, he still does have good enough combat stats with 70 melee attack that he can for sure beat the Fey Enchantress in a straight-up fight. More War Dancers being called in. Good play by Subutai using his Knights Errant to kind of intercept them, and their 16 melee attack will not be doing much damage, but the 62 melee defense will also buy them some time. Orion going to be dropping a bit of a bombardment here as Bretonnia continues to edge out value. Up here on the high ground, they had some good engagements versus my War Dancers, and a lot of my archers are kind of offline right now. I feel like I didn't have a lot of good call-ins here. So we're going to keep scrapping. Orion sitting at, I would imagine, some good value. Great Stag Knights, I just throw them into the middle. I'm like, hey, at this point, let's just have them fight with the King of the Woods, and maybe they're going to be able to do it. Orion closing in on 2k value right now. Is a big, angry Knights of the Lionheart going to be charging into the mid. good anti-large bonus, and we have Knights of the Realm, and the Grail Knights are still very healthy, haven't taken too much damage. So now I'm kind of in a bit of a desperation situation. I moved my Spears and Archers over to the middle. I abandoned Objective 1. I'm like, okay, we got to go all hands on deck right here, man. Orion needs to get some kills. I need to get some picks on the Fey Enchantress. Hawk's Talon going down. Heals for my Branch Wraith, keeping these War Dancers in very good shape in tandem with their super, super high melee defense. They do grind through a lot of the Bretonnians here, and we do see a bit of a clawback in terms of value. And with healing, you know, it's not the worst trading in the world, but Bretonnia still has been taking the lead for sure in the later stages of the game, which is evident in the fact that they can afford to send things on the side, whereas I have to allocate everything to try and win the fights. Orion, though, raid boss in at 2,300 value, beating down these paladins. One paladin, I believe, was taken down earlier, and the other one is for sure going to be losing to the King of the Woods. And the thing about Orion is he gets so tanky when he gets low. So people think they can kill him, but then he gets a huge healing buff and also 20% ward save when he's below 25%. So he just like can be such a raid boss. And he's one of those characters that I believe it got nerfed. It used to be even better. It used to be like, I think like 25%, and like there was some other variable. It was something better, but yeah, anyways, Chalice of Potions going down from the Fey Enchantress. Going to be dropping on the Eternal Guard right here, so that's going to be some fat bombardments. A nice one right there. Tickles the pickle of those Eternal Guard for sure. Paladin gets pushed back by Orion, and he is the one thing I've really been enjoying in this matchup so far. It's been a really, really nice kind of exploration of the Wood Elves and some of the different options they have here. And yeah, he's actually been pretty disruptive, just like beating up the Bretonnian characters, certainly not doing bad there. A couple spears being called in, so Eternal Guard. Meanwhile, Dryads doing some split pushing top, but the Cav, the Knights of the Lionhearted, a really nice tool. Their magic damage will circumvent a lot of the Dryads' natural resistances, which is physical resistance. So, yeah, probably going to be a bit of a tricky pickle here. Some Glade Riders trying to come in and help. Maybe the Dryads will be able to pull that one. I certainly need them to. In the meantime, Orion, still duking it out here, dragging down units where he can, sitting at about 2,600 value, so he's been raid bossing it. Spears moving up, but now we're pretty considerably behind on value, and we have been triple capped. So basically here, Orion is going to be fighting a little bit longer, but this, I respect you guys too much. This is clearly a game that is pretty much over. So Spear's going to be hustling up to the middle. We'll do some auction house commentary here at the very end. I do manage to wrestle the side objective with some Spears and some Cav, but getting the other 2 points back is going to be very tough. Orion trying to drag down the Fey Enchantress, but the cheap Spearmen at Arms, their anti-large bonus is very relevant here. On top of that, the Knights aren't able to surround him, and Orion probably going to be going down in there, and most likely the high ground objective will be lost. He just has so many good quality Cav around, and the Spears can only do so much work. So overall, it was a really fun match. Orion at 3k value was great. I was very, very happy with his performance. I think the build initially, the archers were way too hard to protect. Way Watchers, I think, might be better if you want to play the archer game. But then again, if you're going to go Way Watchers, Orion probably isn't the way. You probably need a wider army, like a cheaper army with a cheap caster lord to protect it. But overall, yeah, I think like if you want to go with Orion, I think like Spears and Treekin would be really good. And honestly, maybe even throwing in an Ancient Tree Man like into the mix, just like sitting, plopping down on 2 objectives with Orion in a box, and having Spears and Treekin to fight off Battle Pilgrims, because that's the thing, the Battle Pilgrims counter your Spears, but Treekin could hold back Battle Pilgrims, and maybe you could grind something out. I'm just trying to think of like an Orion playstyle that could work well. But he was awesome. 3,400. Spears were great too. You see 1,000 value on a couple of those, not bad at all. Archers did like okay, but it was hard to protect them. He did a really good job swarming for sure. Stag Knights were a massive disappointment, obviously cost me a bit. And the Wardens of Sithril. So I had 2 really bad investments, which I think threw the game for me, which were the Stag Knights as well as the Wardens. I think they were both, I played poorly with both of them, and it just, that's 2 expensive units that in a tight game like this, you can't afford to mess up. Grail Knights really good here, no surprises. They wreck a lot of the Wood Elf Cavalry and also the infantry, so it was a great game. Fey Enchantress, she did good, Mortis Engine, and just kind of sitting on the middle objective. Paladins kind of got their butts kicked, which was nice to see. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing a little bit of off meta here from the Wood Elves. We'll be back with more replay soon. You guys take care of yourselves, and that is going to be it for tonight.